Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Dr. Joey interviews Christian business professionals just like you to discover their secrets for working faith positive in a negative world. Welcome to Faith Positive Radio with Dr. Joey Fawcett.
Faith Positive Nation, you know, we're all busy people, right, as Christian business professionals, but we all have a life beyond business. At least I hope we do. Hope we don't work 24/7, right? And so there's that matter of the family life, and God has given us marvelous opportunities to have relationships at home, very intimate relationships where we can be who we are created to be. We can really live into and out of that divine design in response to our calling to be a part of family, which God created, of course. And for some of us, family is easy to create, right? I mean, like for my wife and I, it was almost too easy, right? Our two daughters, we were so gifted and blessed by them and continue to be, even though they're both young adults now, just continue to enjoy being family with them. And our family has grown and expanded to include a couple of the two greatest guys in the world, right? They're helpmates to our daughters. Unfortunately, not all of our families are that easily created. And so that creates a whole host of complex issues within families and things like that. So I'm really excited to introduce to you my two new best friends, Faith Positive Nation, and that's Cline and Charis. Boone, prebornkids.com is their website. And what we're going to talk about today is Katie and Charis have created the National Registry for Adoption, embryo adoptions. And so this is one of the most exciting topics you're ever going to hear about. And these two ladies are doing amazing things. So Faith Positive Nation, help me welcome Katie and Charis. Katie and Charis, welcome to Faith Positive Radio.
Thank you, Dr. Joey. Thank you so much for having us.
We're delighted to have you. So tell me all about how the NRFA got started, because you two have a story to tell, and I want to hear it.
Well, my husband and I this is Charis, and my husband and I had a long journey with infertility that then led into a long journey of trying to adopt our first daughter, Jula. And after we adopted her through domestic adoption, I was given some information about embryo adoption. And like most people, I had never heard of it. I didn't know it was a possibility. Even though while we were doing infertility treatments, the question had come to mind, what would we do had we gone through an in vitro cycle and created more embryos than we could possibly use to grow our family?
Okay.
So we began the journey of finding and adopting embryos, which we then transferred to myself, and I was able to carry and give birth to my adopted child. So okay. I got to experience pregnancy, but also grow my family through embryo adoption. At the same time, one of my best friends was on the opposite end of the spectrum, and I'll let her share a little bit about her story and then how that led us together to start the National Registry for Adoption. So to you, Katie.
Thank you. I did go through IVF, and that resulted in boy-girl twins. And boy-girl twins are what I like to call one and done.
We're good.
I couldn't imagine having more children, and we had two remaining embryos, which are my biological parts and my husband's biological parts.
Okay.
And they were grade A. So they were tip-top embryos, and we said, if we transfer these, we're going to get another set of twins. So, as Christians who believe that life begins at conception and that God has a plan for all of us, we didn't want to do the current options with embryos that you can't use, which is to donate them to science or just throw them away or just leave them in frozen storage for years and years and years. So I knew Charis, and we've been friends for a long time, when she gave birth to her adopted daughter, an adopted embryo. And I said, well, I have two embryos to donate. How can we make it easy for people to find each other? So we developed the National Registry for Adoption, and we like to call it the Match.com of the embryo adoption and donation. People make profiles, they chat through the site, and then they can find a home for extra embryos like I had which are now, I donated to a woman in Oklahoma, and she has twin boys running around right now.
And they're running around her house instead of yours. Right?
And then people like Charis can come who can carry a child, but maybe, can't get pregnant or have issues. And then they can control, they get to experience pregnancy and give birth to their children.
Oh, wow. So what I hear you saying is that IVF creates more embryos typically than one woman wants to carry or can carry.
Yes, I run a embryo donor group on Facebook, embryo
Uh-huh.
donors only. And some women, I only had 2 extra embryos. So in theory, we could have had 4 children. But some women have 12 extra embryos or 15. And
Wow.
that goes beyond, what anyone could have. And some people are told by their doctors, well, you can't be pregnant again. It was too hard on you. And so we want to give those people who are told, hey, you can never use these. We want to say, hey, you can use these to give life to a family that is desperate for children.
So unless you,
At a reduced cost compared to other types of adoption.
wow. So unless you want to raise a baseball team,
That's right.
or a football team or something, you can help someone else.
So on TLC, donate those embryos.
I love it. I love it because most of us just, we've heard of in vitro fertilization, right? But we don't think about their leftover embryos. I mean, I hate to refer to them as remainders, but they just are there. So what usually happens to them? Did I just hear you say that they're disposed of or there's in cryostasis forever?
Yes. Basically, clinics do not help you understand that you can donate them. So we're glad we're here on Faith Positive Radio. We want your listeners to share about this story because most people haven't heard of it, because most moms who go through IVF are left with the choice of, well, you can just dispose of these, like we let them thaw, throw them away. You can take them to science, which I think science has so many donated embryos, many aren't needed, or you can leave them frozen. And one woman actually did have her embryo frozen for 20 years before she donated it. That's the longest known frozen embryo that became a baby boy when he was donated.
Wow. And he was fine?
He was fine. But during
That's
the period,
incredible.
the family is paying to have the embryo stored, and that can be a burden on families who, dealt with infertility and already had to pay for IVF. This gives you an option to do something great with your embryos.
Wow. That's incredible. Who would have thought of that? I guess the Holy Spirit did, right? And delivered it to you. So Katie, you had these leftover embryos. Where was the pivot point for you mentally, spiritually, to say somebody else could use these embryos?
For us, having twins, and we run our own businesses from home, so there was no maternity leave. There was no...
Your boss wouldn't let you have time off.
Boss was me. And having twins during that situation was it was brutal. I tell people that I hardly remember the first year of having twins because I was so busy and so stressed. And,
well, that's a good thing you can't remember it, right? Because if you did, you run screaming into the night.
So I had my good friend Charis, who had seen try to adopt, try to do foster to adopt, try to do IVF, try to do all kinds of things. And I saw her grow her family through embryo adoption, and my husband can build amazing websites. And so Charis was like, let's help people meet and learn about this option.
Charis, how did you hear about embryo adoption?
Embryo adoption was something I researched while I was doing infertility treatments. I did not want to go through the IVF process unless I could guarantee an opportunity at life for every preborn child we created. So it was kind of in the back of my mind, but after so much failure with infertility treatments, we turned to domestic adoption and we loved it. And it wasn't on the forefront of my mind until a person I barely knew sent me a radio broadcast on a CD about embryo adoption. And I was compelled by it because in the adoption process, it was so difficult to adopt a newborn. In the States or internationally through foster care, we tried everything.
Yeah, because everybody wants an infant, right?
Right. And, I like to say that there's two types of adoption. There's orphan care and there's growing your family. And
Mm,
there's nothing wrong with growing your family through adoption and
right.
versus orphan care.
Mhm.
But adopting a newborn doesn't really fit into the category of orphan care because for every child that's available for adoption, newborn child in the
Mhm.
United States, there's 28 families in line for that child.
Did you say 28?
28
Holy
in
cow.
every child,
Wow.
every newborn that is placed for adoption in the United States.
Hmm.
So when I was told that there were 600,000 frozen embryos in the United States alone,
600,000?
100,000 now, not all of them are available for adoption or their families are still planning on using them to try to grow their own families. But that number overwhelmed me. And at the time, it was very difficult and expensive to do embryo adoption. The
Hmm.
programs were new through agencies and through clinics, and it was going to cost between $14,000 and $16,000 to sign up with an agency to then be able to adopt the embryos and then pay the medical fees just for a chance,
Wow.
of getting pregnant.
Wow.
So, in processing all of this, I thought, why isn't there a way for people to
Mhm.
connect directly?
Mm.
Donor can connect with the recipient
Mm.
and and do that directly. And so that is what NRFA allows families to do. They can match directly, bypass that $14,000 to $16,000 agency fee. And in doing that, NRFA has allowed a lot of families who thought embryo adoption wasn't possible, wasn't within their grasp, to try it.
Oh, wow.
And so that's been extremely exciting.
Oh, I know.
Babies born, that part of our day to day is getting to see families who were at the end of their rope. They had had failed adoption attempts. They didn't think that they had any budget left to grow their families. And now they're understanding and experiencing this new form of adoption.
Man, you're gonna make me cry. That is such a beautiful story. So really it was a spiritual burst of insight then that you saw from a business perspective, you saw the market need and God rose up to fill it.
Charis definitely saw the market need. And I think God had made us friends for a long time because she knew that my husband and I could run a business.
Mhm.
Mm.
So she said, oh, well, you've already created businesses online that work and are effective. Here's a need that needs to be met. Let's work on this together. And we've been in business since 2012.
Mhm.
So, and we're still friends.
And we began in 2010 working on the project. I think the Lord definitely placed us together. The Lord has given me visions of adoption and different opportunities like this for years, but I'm not an implementer. And so
Mm.
Katie and saying, hey, I have this crazy idea. I really think the Lord could use it. What do you think? Well, just think about it. Just think about it.
Don't say no right now. Just think about it.
And, I guess it was about a week later, she came back and said, let's do it. And I was floored. But the Lord had moved in her heart. And so the Lord's moved in hearts, I think, throughout this process, just in a very bold way that brings all the glory back to him. And I'll tell you one way that Charis, saw the Lord move was in the heart of my husband.
Mm.
My husband didn't want to have anything to do with embryo adoption the first time I mentioned it to him.
Mm.
I listened to that radio broadcast and I came home and I was so excited and said, sweetheart, I found this new thing that I think the Lord is leading us to, and I just really feel like this is what we're supposed to do for our next child. And he said,
He
no.
didn't jump up and down.
He said, why are you going to put your body through the difficulty of pregnancy when we can just adopt the way we did before? He was perfectly happy with domestic adoption.
So his concern was for you.
Yes, he was very concerned on the unknowns of how it would impact my body and the risk that I would be at.
Mm.
So I prayed. I took it to the Lord. I didn't badger my husband. I didn't keep pounding after him like I'd done in the past.
You let the Holy Spirit badger him and pound on him.
It's a more powerful way to get things done, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So going through an agency wasn't going to be an option for us. There was no way my husband was going to go for spending $16,000 for, he calls it a chance to go to Vegas and roll the dice.
I understand. Yeah.
Not $16,000 to adopt a child. It's $16,000 for a chance at a child.
Mm.
So I prayed and I went online and I started Googling and finding blogs of women who are talking about having leftover embryos and sending them crazy messages like, hey, have you found someone to take those embryos?
That is a crazy message. I mean, you don't get that kind of email every day, right?
Certainly no one responded to me for a long time. And finally, one day I got an email back and I communicated back and forth with her for a while and finally went to my husband timidly after a lot of prayer and said, sweetheart, I found a couple that is willing to give us 4 embryos, and I want to read you a letter from them telling about who they are and their background. And if you don't like this family, I will drop it forever because there's not another family more perfect for us.
Mm.
So will you just humor me? Will you listen to the letter? And he said, you promise you'll drop it? Yeah. And I read the letter.
I take it you're pretty persistent, Charis.
I can be, yes. So I read the letter to him and I looked up at his face afterwards and he was smiling and he said, let's do it.
Wow.
And so the Holy Spirit was able to move my husband from a no to a yes.
Mm.
It has become one of the greatest blessings in our life. It changed the trajectory of our life.
Mm. Wow. Now, his concerns about your pregnancy. How did your pregnancy go?
My pregnancy went fine. I mean, I had the normal morning sickness, and shockingly enough, after all that work I did to get pregnant, I did not enjoy being pregnant.
Imagine that.
Hard work
Yeah.
growing a human.
They call it labor for a reason, you know.
There was.
Great.
Well, let me jump in here and just add to what Charis is saying. When you adopt a baby or an orphan, you haven't gotten to be a part of that child as they were growing by you. And so in this case with embryo adoption, you get to be the mom who gets to experience morning sickness, but you also get to control what you're eating, what you're drinking, the doctor that you go see. I feel like many women who cannot have children, they desperately want to experience pregnancy because all their friends have, and this is a way to make that possible.
I would say it was the closest to normal that I could get, as far as when my first daughter was born through domestic adoption. I didn't know when she was born if she was going to be mine. I had to wait 48 hours, and that's in the state of Texas. Other states, you have to wait much longer periods of time.
Yeah.
First mothers can sign relinquishments. So it was a mixed bag of emotions when my first daughter was born of, I love her and this is an amazing moment, but is she going to be taken away from me? Am I really going to get to be her mother for life? With embryo adoption, all the paperwork is done before you get pregnant. So you don't have to have that concern. You know throughout the entire pregnancy that that child is yours and that you don't have to be scared that at the birth you're going to bond and then the baby's going to be taken away.
And I also like the point about you get to control what you eat, what you drink, your physical health during that time, because I know that's a big concern of friends of ours who have adopted, is the mother's physical health during the pregnancy. And we know what happens oftentimes in those situations. So embryo adoption is for women who can actually carry a baby but just can't get pregnant, right?
It actually goes beyond that. We've had women who have adopted embryos and then had gestational carriers carry the children for them.
Like a surrogate?
And there's many reasons for that. Sometimes women don't feel comfortable using an egg donor or a sperm donor. They want these children to be created. Why create more embryos when there's already embryos available? The the same time, using a gestational carrier for embryo adoption allows you still those same benefits of knowing that a child is coming that is yours.
Hmm. So if I'm physically unable to carry a baby to term, there's still the gestational carrier that can help me with that, with an embryo that I chose, which means that there's a choice here in the process. Did you say 600,000 embryos? Is that what you said?
Just in the United States alone.
Just in the U.S.? That blows the top off my head.
Worldwide, how many we're talking about?
Yeah.
To add to what Charis is saying and just say, a lot of donors don't know that they can donate. And so some of those 600,000 are being stored because the parents don't know what to do. So if you have a parent who said, oh, we have 8 embryos left, so go to prebornkids.com and find out more.
Right. Tell me about that whole matching process, Katie. You mentioned that your website, prebornkids.com, is like a match.com. Tell me how that works.
It's great. For donors, it's free because we want donors to donate. And for waiting families or recipients, it's a very minimal charge. You can pay $19.99 a month and be on the website.
Wow.
You create your own profile and you get to tell about yourself, because Charis and I know that you don't connect with someone over like that they're 5'7" and that they have brown hair. Connect over the fact that they
or no hair. No hair. Let's shout out for the bald guys, right?
Connect with them because they love Diet Coke and you love Diet Coke, and they love to throw parties and you throw parties, and their husband works in accounting and your husband's an accountant. Those things help people connect. And so on the website, the donors and the waiting families create their online profiles, and then you can go and search different profiles and message the people that you feel the most connection with.
So really what you've done is you've taken it to the next level. Obviously, families who are looking at adopting an embryo are going to be interested in physical characteristics because you want the child to look like your family, right? In some way, shape, form, or fashion. But I love the more intimate details. Like, by the way, Diet Coke is not paying us anything for this episode. But if you want to, Diet Coke will be glad to pass the money on to this great prebornkids.com matching service. So what you've done is you really take it to the next level with some intimate details about we love throwing parties, hospitality is my spiritual gift. So we have a lot of parties and things like that. So you really broken the ice in a different direction. Do you allow the families to talk to each other, to actually message each other?
We do. They can message each other privately on the website, so they don't have to give their real emails or their phone numbers. So you can message privately. And if you want, you can be, you can actually have an anonymous relationship. You can have a completely open relationship where you go on vacation together like Charis has done. Or like,
have you really? You went on vacation?
Yeah. So when we started the process with our embryo donors, she did not know how she felt about it. And I said, well, let's figure it out as we go. I'm open to whatever level of openness you want to have. Or, if you find out once you see pictures of the baby, it upsets you, then we'll back off. And so I followed her lead in it, and she said, I just want pictures. I want to know how the child's doing. It's not like I want to go on family vacations together. And we had a good laugh about it. And then fast forward 3 years later, we had become such great friends that she said, hey, we're going to Disney World. Do y'all want to come? It was one of the most fun vacations we've ever had, and we absolutely love vacationing together. And so, but I would say that's a very unique relationship.
I'll say.
We have completely closed donations where they don't know each other, and we can facilitate that on NRA. All the way to, I would say, we are probably the most open adoption that I've heard of.
Yeah, really.
Vacations together and spending holidays together, but we've just become family. I mean, it's the Lord brought us together so that we could be a family together, and that's our story, but that's not everyone's story, and you don't have to have that level of openness when you begin the process.
Yeah, so it can be as open or as closed as you'd like for that to be between yourself and the other couple.
Katie, you have a semi-open.
I have a semi-open. My husband wanted to know about the children and if they were born. He did not feel comfortable seeing pictures or being asked to meet. He said, I'm happy to donate. I don't want more children, but if I see the children, I think I'm going to feel sad.
Yeah.
I communicate with the mom. I see pictures. I know the children's names, but my husband doesn't. And so that works for us. We do have a contract, and National Registry for Adoption can supply a contract. And we say when the children are older, if they want to meet, then of course they can.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, semi-open adoption works for us.
Mm-hmm.
You bring up a good point. So is the contract process complicated for embryo adoption?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is no. It is actually very simple because embryos are not recognized legally as children. They are recognized as property. And so you complete...
Say that again, please.
Embryos are not recognized as people. They're not.
That's by the law of the land. Uh-huh.
And so by the law of the land, they are recognized as just personal property. And so NRFA has worked with several lawyers and come up with an amazing contract that includes so many things that you wouldn't necessarily think about. Like, what if one day the child has a medical issue and needs a bone marrow transplant?
Sure.
We've in the years of doing this, we have compiled all this information and put it into a solid contract for families that they can use. And it will help also navigate them through the donation process.
Mm-hmm.
Bring up topics they need to discuss between their donors and the recipients ahead of time so that everyone is on the same page. But as far as the process goes, a donor chooses a recipient and they do a contract, and that's it.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, what you ladies do is really facilitate the process for the greatest chance of success, right? So
yes.
you're
make it easy, inexpensive, and get those babies born.
Yeah, wow. What a passion.
The way we can to remove barriers to embryo adoption, to allow families who didn't think it was a possibility or thought it was too difficult to just jump in there and walk alongside them throughout the process.
So what you've done is you've lowered the financial barrier and you've lowered the legal barrier. And it sounds like you've also lowered some of the emotional barrier by giving them a process for talking about the relationship and establishing that, because I would imagine there are a lot of questions, particularly if you're the donor, a lot of questions about that. And Katie, I love the example of you and your husband coming at it from two different angles, but being able to be respectful of one another. Yeah, that really works well. I love the sensitivity around that because we're all God's children, right? We all come at things differently, and so we want to be respectful of one another. So what can Faith Positive Nation do to help?
Well, we have set up a special website for your amazing Christian businessmen and women to go visit. It's prebornkids.com/faithpositive. And on that, you have 3 different options. You can find a way to share on social media about the National Registry for Adoption and embryo donation and adoption. The next thing is something Charis wrote.
I wrote a book, an online book that they can download in PDF form that's going to take them very systematically through all the questions they would have to answer. What embryo adoption? What are the steps of the process? What are the issues we need to consider? And what are the decisions we need to make? And so it's a 3-step book that will answer most, if not all, the questions they may have about embryo adoption.
Okay, so really the ebook takes me by the hand and walks me through this process. So
right.
Embryo adoption for dummies like me, right?
Many people haven't heard about it. So if you haven't heard about it, don't be surprised. So that's at prebornkids.com/faithpositive. And lastly, if you want to donate or talk to your spouse about adopting embryos, you can start your profile from there as well.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. So we can go ahead and begin the process if we would like to adopt embryos. That's beautiful. So the first thing is we can go to prebornkids.com/faithpositive and we can share on social media. Hey, come here, check this out. We can share it with all of our friends, right? On Facebook or...
I need to know 95 or more % of people in America have never heard about this. So even if you don't do anything else, if you just share that this is possible, then other people can hear, and that really you might help a baby be born.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I hadn't heard until my great friends Tom and Karen Schwab from Interview Valet brought you ladies to me, and I'm like, embryo adoption. Okay, Karen, what have you got here for me? And so I read your one sheet, and I'm like, well, this makes perfect sense. What I really love is the way God brought you two together for this, and Charis's insight and vision gifted by the Holy Spirit, and then you, Katie, using your gifts for business as well as your husband's gifts, and just that. I mean, it's almost like God knew what he was doing, right?
I think he does.
Charis, what were you going to say?
Well, even if you don't think you know someone that might be impacted or might be making these decisions, a lot of time infertility is a journey that's kept very private.
Hmm.
Statistics are saying between 1 in 6 to 1 in 8 couples of childbearing age are experiencing infertility of some sort.
Wow. 1 in 6 or 1 in 8. Wow.
Most of them do not feel comfortable sharing broadly what they're going through.
Yeah. How do you talk about that? I mean, you can't say when somebody tacitly says, you've been married 3 years, you ever going to have kids? We've been trying.
And then the tears bubble up in their eyes, and that might be an indicator. But I would just encourage you today to share the link and share the information on your social media pages, because you never know who it's going to impact. By sharing this information through my social media networks, I've had so many people reach out to me with private messages saying, this is exactly what I'm walking through, and I need more support, or I need more information on this. And so you don't know who you could be impacting and what lives you could be changing and what option of hope you could be giving someone just by sharing the news that embryo adoption exists.
Yeah, well, I know we're going to share this broadcast throughout all of our social media, which is going to populate it to over 30. I think we might be up to 40,000 connections and friends now around the world. I'm passionate about it. I love what you're doing because it's God-breathed. But I also really want to pass kudos to you two ladies for having the courage and to believe, maybe persistence, Charis, to to believe that God still does miracles like this, and the two of you just making yourselves willing to be used by God. So that's an amazing story. Katie, before we say goodbye, and by the way, I am going to ask you your favorite Bible verse. So I hope you got one. I got a feeling I know what it might be, but anyway, Katie, tell me about the businesses that, you and your husband have your own businesses. So you said he makes incredible websites. I would be remiss as the host of Faith Positive Radio if I didn't let you give him a shout out so he can get some more business.
Oh, well, wonderful. Well, my husband is Scott Allen Turner, and he has a personal finance podcast and website, so scottallenturner.com. If you need to learn how to budget, you need to save for retirement, if you want to become a financial rock star.
Who doesn't want to be a financial rock star, right? So spell Scott and Allen for me. I think we can spell Turner, but spell it out for me.
Sure. It's SCOTT, then Allen is ALAN. So scottallenturner.com. Check him out. And he built the prebornkids.com website, and it was a lot of work, and he did it while we had twin babies. So kudos to him.
Wow. And what about your online business?
Well, I do NRFA, the National Registry for Adoption, and then I also run 5 rental homes. So I'm
awesome.
So Charis is busy too. We're just busy moms with little children. So God gives us grace to run this company and do interviews like this because we are busy ladies.
Yeah, I'd say you are busy ladies. So you run on caffeine, right, and vitamins. Yeah, energy drinks or something, right? Yeah, great. Okay, I think I know, but I'm not going to say. What's your favorite Bible verse? Because Faith Positive Nation always asks us about this.
Well, thank you for asking. Mine is 1 Peter 5:7, and it's a short one. It just says, cast all your anxiety on him. He cares for you. And this speaks to my heart because I get anxious and nervous about what people would call first world problems. Like, oh, I have a photo shoot for my kids and I need to find clothes that coordinate because I have a boy and a girl, and I stress out about it. And what is amazing to me is that the God who created the universe and developed the stars and set them in place, he says, cast all your anxiety. He doesn't say, Cast really the important stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I care about. He says, cast all your anxiety on me. Why? Because he cares for us.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. And
Oh,
so
really?
if your listeners are out there today stressing about something or anxious, I would encourage them to just cast their cares on Jesus because he cares for them.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what the anxiety, right? Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful.
Sometimes you can say this is silly for me to worry about, but that doesn't take the worry away for me to know that it's silly. Sometimes I still feel worried or anxious, and sometimes things are very serious. But don't hesitate to go to God with anything.
Oh, yeah. In fact, let God be the first one you go to because he cares that intimately for us and wants to relieve us of those burdens. It does no good whatsoever to compare burdens, right? Mine's bigger than yours. Well, it really doesn't matter. Your anxiety is your anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Charis, what about your favorite Bible verse?
My favorite verse is one my mother gave to me. As a child, she has since passed away, and it has stayed deeply rooted in my heart. And it is Zephaniah 3:17. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you and comfort you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. That verse has always just carried me through so much. The loss of my mother, my journey with infertility, the adoption placements that have fallen through. To know that God is with me. He is not distant. He has not forgotten me. He has not turned his back on me.
Right.
With me. He is comforting me. He is rejoicing over me.
And singing. I love that last line. He's singing.
Yes.
That's right. That angelic chorus is singing right now over this episode of Faith Positive Radio. And it's because of the two of you, Katie Cline and Charis Boone. Thank you so much for the gift of your time today. The website is prebornkids.com. If you'd like to pick up something special for Faith Positive Nation, you go to prebornkids.com/faithpositive. And you have an opportunity. Here's the challenge. You have an opportunity there to share prebornkids.com with everybody you know on Facebook. There is some young woman and her husband suffering through infertility, and they may be silent sufferers. So they may read your Facebook post or catch your LinkedIn post or that tweet. And they may say, wow, God, thanks for letting me cast my anxieties on you. Now I can join you in singing because you're really going to move here. So they can investigate it. And the power of social media is huge. God uses that too. So Katie and Charis, thank you so much. God bless both of you, your incredible ministry through prebornkids.com. And we just pray God's blessings on you, your husbands, and your children.
Thank you so much for having us. We really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Faith Positive Radio, the Christian business coaching conversation that increases your faith with greater joy at work so you love God and others more. Suggest guests and ask questions when you email Dr. Joey at info@getpositive.today. And be sure to get your free gift of the 5 positive business conversations to have today coaching program at getpositive.today. Until next time, may God bless you with everything your heart can hope for and more than your mind can imagine.